live on the big screens. And let's not forget their mouth-watering trademark, the Bison Burger. Nobody does bison like Harry Buffalo. The perfect combination of healthy and delicious. What are you waiting for? Get to Harry Buffalo, just outside Great Northern Mall today. Harry Buffalo. Join the herd.
Business owners and professionals, do you want to take your business, your product, your team, your event to the next level? You want to advertise right here with the Sports Fix. Our listeners are among the most loyal listeners, terrestrial or internet. The Sports Fix universe is not only the radio show, but tens of thousands of fans on Facebook and Twitter. Email me, Jerry Myers, thesportsfix@AOL.com. That's thesportsfix@AOL.com. And let me help you swing for the fences and hit it out of the park right here on the Sports Fix.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Signs and Ship, the official printing source of the Sports Fix. Locations in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Florida. Find out more at signsandship.com.
News break.
Good morning, I'm Bob Picozzi. It's not exactly the way the Giants wanted to begin training camp, with players reporting to camp today. Chris Snead, the starting right guard on 2 Super Bowl championship teams, will announce his retirement. This, according to ESPN Giants reporter Dan Graziano. The 4-time Pro Bowl selection has not recovered from offseason elbow surgery to the point which will allow him to play an 11th NFL season. Rory McIlroy has become the 3rd youngest golfer in the Masters era to win a 3rd major championship. He shot a 71 yesterday, finished 17 under for a 2-stroke victory at the British Open.
All I know is that I've won my 3rd major championship, and I'm 3 legs out of the 4 towards a career Grand Slam at 25, so I'm feeling pretty good right now.
McIlroy won the 2011 U.S. Open and the 2012 PGA Championship. Donald Sterling's legal team will begin to present its case today. The trial contesting the sale of the Clippers resumes. The sales agreement between Sterling's wife Shelley and former Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer has a deadline of August 15th. The Bay Area News Group is reporting the A's will try to trade disappointing reliever Jim Johnson by the July 1st deadline. He has a 5.30 ERA.
Subway is serving up a steak, egg white, and cheese flatbread breakfast sandwich to get your day moving. Have tender steak blanketed with melty cheese, all on toasted flatbread, or try it on any of your favorite freshly baked breads. Subway. Eat fresh.
You're listening to the Sports Fix.
Hit it! Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Here comes the hot sniper. I'm the lyrical gangster. Big up the crew in the air.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix, live on the Sports Fix Radio Network across all the different platforms. J-Rock back with you as we roll on, getting ready to go to the phone lines in just a minute and talk to my man, John McMullen from the Sports Network. So the phone lines are not open for you, but you can contact us so many different ways. Stay in touch with the show right now on Facebook, on Twitter, on your email, baby, facebook.com/thesportsfix. Tweet with us at thesportsfixCLE. Email us, thesportsfix@AOL.com. And that's right, I saw it in the chat room. A little Eni Kamosi there. Here comes the hot stepper. Back to the Sports Fix. As I said, going to talk some NFL. Camps have officially begun this week. The first few reported. And you know what? I'm sure the first of many of these stories like this, but I have to laugh at one of the first things I'm going to talk about with my next guest. He's with us every Monday. Business, as JR would say, is fixing to pick up in the football world as camp is here. John McMullen from the Sports Network joining us now to talk about it. John, how you doing this afternoon?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
As always, thanks for being here with us. A great time. And I got to start right off the bat. I'm just saying, I mean, you know, when you have the entire summer, fall, spring, the entire off season, everything to get ready for one. We talk about math tests sometimes with drug tests, but even worse than that, when your job is to be a professional athlete for a living, that's what you get paid to do. How in the world do you show up and fail a conditioning test on the first day like Marcel Darius did with the Bills?
Yeah, you know, he's certainly not the first, so
I know,
we talk about it all the time, and we understand it. You know, you think about the the lockout a couple of years ago when the players were locked out during the off season, and that was one of the scariest things for the coaches, is the fact that they weren't able to check in with the specific players, and fearful that a number of guys wouldn't be in shape and wouldn't keep themselves in pristine condition. And it comes down to a word we use often, and we've constantly talked about a matter of maturity. And I think people tend to look at something, and the vast majority will say, if you give me a check for 7 figures, I'll do whatever you ask. But I always ask people to look at things in their normal life and think about all the people you know. And there's some people that are mature and take their professional lives seriously, and there's others who don't. And it's no different in professional sports. And it's, one of those things, why coaches are paid big money is the fact that you're dealing with so many different personalities. And when you start camp, you're talking about 90 different guys, and not everybody's a robot. There's all different buttons to push, and as I said, some guys need a little bit more prodding than other guys, and you see it all the time across the NFL, not just in Darius's case. You'll see it happen more than once as players start to report.
Oh, I know, and I get exactly what you're saying. It just, we're not talking about being in game shape. We're not talking about being ready to play or even being able to achieve certain athletic milestones. We're talking about baseline stuff here, I don't know. I just, even with what you're saying, and I know personal responsibility, it's just when that is what you do, I thought you just, maintain a baseline level of physical conditioning. At least I would, I know. But anyway, like you said, it's easy to say what you would do or whatever, but especially with Darius, because the offseason that he's had, I think we've talked about him a couple of times here. He's made the headlines now a third time, but already not the best offseason. You would think especially that you would try to come in and act like, hey, nothing to see here. What, does something happen over the summer? I'm just working out, coach, but that didn't happen.
Well, yeah, but you hit the nail on the head. It's that, you think you would do it. I think I would do it. Most people would do it, and you're going to see it, maybe 88 listening drills and one doesn't. So that's the point. Most people do it. But for whatever reason, and when you have a high-profile player like that, it makes it even worse, obviously. And, it tends to be offensive and defensive linemen who don't have to keep themselves in peak physical condition to constantly run and things like that. And as I said, I go back to the story of Bryant McKinney during that lockout, who was, I've always looked at that, kid. He's from South Jersey, right near where I'm located. And I thought he had Hall of Fame talent, and he just never worked at his career, still made a couple Pro Bowls. Basically never did anything in the off season. Then you had the lockup. He shows up in Minnesota and after the lockout, and he was weighing 400 pounds. They were forced to cut him. He landed on his feet in Baltimore, actually won a Super Bowl, eventually went back down to Miami. But he's always been out of shape. He's never really taken his career seriously, and he never lived up to his potential. And, who knows why guys don't have as much drive and determination as other players. But, that's when you talk about, there's a lot of guys with the physical gifts to excel. And there's a difference when you look at, say a Hall of Famer like Jonathan Ogden versus a guy like Bryant McKinney who should have been a Hall of Famer.
No, you're right. It's the difference between a guy who shows up to the NFL for the first time and says, man, I've made it, man. I'm the man. I'm in the NFL. And the guy that goes, oh, man, now I got to go to work, And it's that same mentality right there. And some of it's maturity. Some of it people don't ever grow from. But you're right. I mean, and it's far from every team will probably have at least a guy as we get into everybody training camps here that doesn't fail the test or that doesn't pass the test or whatnot. So we'll continue to see that as it goes on. Looking around, what was the other thing? Oh, I heard it during the break. I wanted to ask you, Chris Snee, how big of a surprise? I mean, were the Giants planning on him not being able to come back, or were they banking on him being able to make a recovery?
Well, I think earlier in this off season they were banking on him making a recovery, so it is a big blow. I think they were, about a month or 6 weeks out. They kind of knew he wasn't doing surgery, and that's that's a huge blow for that team because that was the weakness of that offense last year. And Chris Snee was the one guy you kind of look at and could count on, and had the, at least some sort of a resume, four Pro Bowls, was an All-Pro once, so he was a very good player at the apex of his career, and to lose the leader on that line, it's not a very talented line to begin with. I know people look at the Giants because of their history and, what Tom Coughlin's been able to do there and cobble together 2 Super Bowl titles, and I understand he should get the benefit of the doubt, but I look at that team specifically the offensive line and the front seven on defense. I think it's going to be a real long year for the New York Giants.
Yeah, I wanted to get your thoughts on that. When I heard that this morning, I said, oh, man, I didn't know, and I don't keep up with it enough to know that I didn't know if they had kind of planned for that, saw the way the worm was turning there. I actually skipped ahead here while we were talking about Buffalo. I just want to ask you, I mean, I saw the stories, I'm sure you saw them this morning too, about these, the sale and how high they could possibly fetch a fee for the Buffalo Bills. We know Jimmy Haslam and what he paid for the Browns here just not that long ago. But here in $1.1 billion, and I saw that's nearly $300 million more than what Forbes had the Bills valued at. I mean, does that just, in your mind, continue to show the quickly escalating value of an NFL franchise? I mean, the Bills, just like the Browns, although the Browns, with a rich history, the Bills somewhat, but a bad recent past, and I mean $1.1 billion.
Yeah, I always take those Forbes things with a grain of salt when they value the teams, and because there's no real the books aren't open. We they're private companies each, except for the Packers. They're kind of and nothing something is worth what something will give you for it. And we saw that with the Clippers in the NBA. And I think that's why, you talk about that market and the fact, the second largest market in the country and the NFL hasn't been in there in 20 years. And, imagine if the Buffalo Bills were in Los Angeles, what would the franchise be worth then? If an NBA team is worth $2 billion, what is the NFL team going to be worth? So, it's basically, when you hear that, it's kind of like off-season fodder, and certainly for teams always when they're, up for sale, as the Bills are after Ralph Wilson passed away. People are going to speculate what they're worth, and I think it all depends upon what the eventual end game is. Obviously, the league wants them to stay in Buffalo. I think they're intent on finding an owner that will agree to keep the team there, and if they do, I think that'll be the wheelhouse it'll be in, right around $1 billion, 1.1. But if something were to happen, and if you're looking, it doesn't even have to happen right away. For instance, if an organization buys the Bills and then decides, hey, you saw those stories about the NFL, the league itself building a stadium in Los Angeles. To be a landlord for a team, then all of a sudden, if you can get that market in play, if you can get London in play, because the NFL wants to have a team there, it changes the financial dynamics of any organization. So it depends on the market, and I think that's a decent number, and that's what NFL teams are worth basically right now.
Wow, ESP, brother, you just hit on kind of the two forks in the road here that I was going to go to, talking about L.A. and London. Looking at L.A., and you see the stuff with the stadium situation in Oakland and splitting, and it reminds me so much when I look at what they're going through. It really does remind me of what Cleveland here with when the Browns and the Indians were sharing Municipal Stadium back in the day. And I remember as a kid and as a fan, I thought it was the coolest thing. I did not realize the logistical problems that came with them both being. I thought it was cool that I could see the goal lines on the baseball field and I could see the pitcher's mound on the football field. But